Welcome to the New Mom Talk podcast, your go-to podcast for evidence-based answers to your burning questions about parenting. Join us as we dive into commonly Googled topics and hear from experts and real moms. Let's navigate parenthood together, one question at a time. Hi, everyone. Today we have Jaimie Zaki, who is going to talk to us a little bit about common mistakes that can sabotage breastfeeding or nursing, which I know that this can be a really stressful time. I'm currently nursing myself, and you always have those moments of things that can hurt your supply or not, or all of the things that we're Googling. So I'm going to hand it over to you. If you can start off with telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here, Mariela. I really appreciate it. I am Jaimie Zaki. I am a doula, a homeschooling mom of 5, and an international board certified lactation consultant. And I specialize in helping moms use that intuition that is deep inside of them that they might not even know is there, and combine that with information so that they can make confident decisions as they navigate breastfeeding. And one of the things that over the last 10 years or so of helping moms navigate breastfeeding, one of the things that always comes up is a mom says every time, "Why didn't anybody tell me that?" Whatever that is, sooner. And so I have kind of created a list of the 5 things that I think most moms need to hear as soon as possible if they are pregnant and planning to breastfeed, or they're kind of in those early days of breastfeeding. It's the 5 things that they need to kind of remind themselves of so they don't make mistakes that we say sabotage breastfeeding because it kind of gets people's attention, but really undermine those goals that you have and make things harder than they really need to be.
Love that. So I love that we're just going to stick to the top 5 ones. So naturally, my first question is going to be, what's the most common one that you find that new parents make early on in those first few days that can impact that milk supply or that latch?
Yeah. So it's really hard to rank them. So I just kind of put them all out there. I say the top 5 because they're all equal in my eyes and they all overlap. That's really the thing, is they all go hand in hand so much because breastfeeding is such a complex and nuanced thing, right? So it's never just one factor. There's so much context and multi-factor that impacts how breastfeeding is experienced. So I like to start with the misconception that breastfeeding pain is a rite of passage, right? Everybody talks about, breastfeeding just hurts. You just suffer for a couple weeks and then it'll get better. The truth is you do not just have to wait for it to get better. It is normal to have some early discomfort. You're learning something new. Your baby's learning. Discomfort is normal, but pain is a sign of a problem. And sometimes it's not a big problem. Sometimes it's just the position you're using or the latch technique you're using is not great. And so we want to fix that. And if a mom expresses, I'm in pain, I'm uncomfortable, and a nurse or a doula or a friend or her mother says "Oh, that's just how it is. Just keep trying and it'll get better." Well, what if she just keeps trying this technique that's not working for her? Then it's never going to get better. And it can spiral into causing unnecessary pain and then causing damage when we could have just made a small fix or a small adjustment and saved a whole lot of pain.
Love that you mentioned that pain is not normal. Yes, you're obviously going to have some soreness and discomfort because your body is going through all this new adjusting. And even with baby number 2, I felt that where it's oh, I'm not used to having a baby on there all the time. So I'm sore, or maybe I need to use a little bit more nipple butter, whatever it may be. But so I really appreciate that you said that it is not normal to have that extensive pain, but just that discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I kind of try and convey it to parents is if you are dreading the next feed because you don't want to feel the pain and you're trying to put off that next feed, that's a big red flag. That's a sign that something needs to change, because that kind of goes into the next thing, is assuming that you have low milk supply just because your baby's fussy or because they're not latching well or whatever reason. It's not uncommon for a mom to have low milk supply, right? But in that first week, it's really hard to diagnose, quote, low milk supply because we're not supposed to have a ton of milk in that first week. And it is so that milk supply is so responsive to the input we're giving. So if we're delaying feeds because latching hurts, then we're telling our body not to make milk. And so your body's doing what it's supposed to do, right? It's not making that milk, but you're kind of signaling that input. And then you think you have low milk supply. And then your baby's fussy. And you think, oh, this means I have to supplement. And so you get into this supplementing cycle based off of a fussy baby or difficulty latching and assuming that means your baby doesn't want to latch because there's no milk or whatever stories we make up and tell ourselves, right? Because we do that, right? And like we make up, even as a lactation consultant, mama 5, I was making up stories with my 5th baby. And my husband had to stop me and be like, if this was a client, what would you say? And so I always want moms to know, like, it's normal to make up these like tragedy emergency stories in those first days of why breastfeeding isn't working, but we really have to reel it back and look at the facts and know what red flags to look for. So don't just assume every challenge or fussing situation means you have low milk supply, because the way you're going to counteract that, if you just try and put a Band-Aid fix on it and you're like, oh, I have low milk supply, and you don't go see a lactation consultant or work with somebody to identify what's really going on, then you're just going to start giving formula to top off. And then you're going to start creating a situation where your body responds by making less milk. And it kind of is like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, so true. Early on, I think, I don't know, about a month or 2 once my baby was born, I went to a lactation group. And I think a lot of women choose not to go because it might not be covered by insurance rather than search for free lactation groups. I went to a free one and all I did was 2 visits and definitely I just got the input that I needed searching for that support. And if you can't afford it or your insurance doesn't cover it, connect with somebody at the hospital to see if there's a free one near you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just that you need a little bit of reassurance.
A little, yeah.
And sometimes that is all you need, is just a little bit of reassurance to help you not make decisions from a place of fear and anxiety, and just like I said, get back to the basics, step back, look for the red flags, quantify what's happening, and then make a decision from there.
Let's go to the third one. What's the third one on your list?
So the third one is actually, this is a little controversial, but it's don't depend on the nurses in the hospital and your doctors to be lactation experts that are going to solve your breastfeeding struggles, because they probably aren't. Even though they get a little bit of training in school and then they have some of that hands-on experience, they typically do not have, one, the time to really sit down and figure out the root cause of what's going on with your individual breastfeeding situation. 2, they're focused very much on survival in the first couple days and then getting you home. They don't always understand how those first couple days, what happens, impacts the long term. And so I think it's really important that you work with a lactation specialist before your baby comes, whether that's taking a class, going to support groups during pregnancy, having a one-on-one prenatal lactation consult, just so you can really have a strong foundation of breastfeeding knowledge and understanding, and then having that person that you trust to turn to when your baby arrives. Because sometimes the lactation team at the hospital is great. Sometimes they have every potential to be great, but they don't have the time to spend on you for you to feel that greatness. And sometimes they just aren't great, or they're just not there. They're non-existent. Not every hospital has a lactation team. So it's kind of a roll of the dice, and it's really important for moms to know that they do not need to just take that one opinion from that one doctor and assume that means anything about their breastfeeding story. Because I've had so many moms say, but the doctor said, and I'm like, okay, and I'm telling you that what they said is wrong. And you can take what I say with a grain of salt too. Like, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to your instinct, but learn the information and take that information and your instincts and put them together. And if it's not sitting right with you, get a second opinion or a third opinion from a different doctor or nurse or lactation consultant. I'm partial toward lactation consultants, obviously.
Hi everyone, it's your host, Mariela. I want to thank you for listening and share some ways to show your continued support. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share the show with friends and family. Buy me a coffee to help with the financial costs of running a podcast. Follow me on Instagram at newmomtalk.podcast. And finally, subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you for listening.
I think that is really important for families that are having their first one, right? Because you don't know what to expect. Whereas if you've already gone through this one set, now you're been exposed to it, and hopefully by that point you know. The doctor doesn't always know the answers to everything.
And it's, I that is the experience I had with my first. I was a nurse going into it. I thought I knew what I needed to know, and if I needed help, the doctors and nurses would help me. And my son kept struggling with feeding, and nobody had answers. And the pediatrician we were seeing had a lactation consultant in-house, and even she didn't really have the answers. And she, unfortunately, in every profession, there's good and there's bad. There's people have good days and they have bad days. And my challenges were brushed off as she told me, "You're a redhead, which means you're extra sensitive. That's why you're in pain." And that's what it was brushed off as. Yeah, I know. I could go on a whole tangent about that. We could do a whole episode on that alone and all the problems with that statement. But I digress. Just because somebody says that and they're in a position of authority or power or expertise doesn't mean they're right. So that obviously did not sit well with me, and I didn't know what to do. And it was my mom who told me, like, you can get another opinion. You don't have to just take that one professional's opinion. And that is what ended up saving our breastfeeding relationship with my first, was getting that second opinion.
Wow. And look at you now.
I know. I took it very personally. I took that comment very personally.
I'll show her.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really does bring me into my fifth mistake that moms make, and it's ignoring their instinct and their intuition, especially first-time moms. They tell themselves, "Oh, I'm just a first-time mom. I don't know anything. Oh, I'm just this. Oh, I'm just afraid," or again, all these stories that we tell ourselves. We've been conditioned not to trust ourselves and not to trust our instincts and to hand over our authority. And so learning how to take that back during pregnancy really is important, so that you can trust those instincts and trust that intuition, so that you don't have to stay small and stay quiet and just like write this victim story that so many moms really do. I have met so many moms who have told me, like their breastfeeding story. Because when I go somewhere, I go to like a work event with my husband or something, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a lactation consultant." And then all of a sudden I'm getting these like unsolicited, super personal breastfeeding stories from everybody in the room. And it's beautiful. I love it. But it's so interesting because it's everybody has their own story, but they're really not that unique. And so many of the women I talk to tell me, like, "Well, I couldn't breastfeed because of this ridiculous reason that some doctor told her," right? And it's like, "Well, what did you feel?" And she's like, "Well, I felt like they were wrong, but I didn't know what else to do." And it was like, she didn't trust her instincts to go get that second opinion, right? She didn't trust her instincts to just trust her body and learn more and advocate for herself. She didn't believe in herself enough. And so many women who are like in their 50s and 60s, grew up in a totally different era of motherhood, tell me, "I wish there was someone like you back then, because maybe I would have trusted myself more. Maybe I would have listened to my instincts. Maybe I would have tried harder." And I just think it's really sad that that is one of the most common problems I see that's undermining breastfeeding, is just the stories that women are telling themselves that they're not good enough.
Think with that too is that our generation, we're doing a better job of this, but we have a hard time like asking for help, because then it's
Mhm.
almost like we've failed, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, if I go and I seek help from a lactation consultant, then that means that I clearly am not good at nursing, or
Yeah. Well, because we're
I
told it's supposed to be natural, right?
so easy.
Yeah, like, it's like it is the natural follow-up to pregnancy, but it doesn't come naturally when we have grown up in a world where breastfeeding has been shielded from us. It's a learned behavior. It is not something that we're just supposed to wake up and know how to do. It's something we're supposed to see from childhood, and it's supposed to be kind of layered and ingrained in us over time, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, and we don't always see it, like, for some people, it can be still a very controversial thing, like nursing in public, or, seeing a mom that's not covered up, feeding
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, and I'll say in the last 10 years that I've been doing this, I feel like we have come so far, and not all at the same time. And my husband's in the Air Force, so we have moved a lot. So we've been in a lot of different areas and parts of the country. And it's been kind of neat to watch the different, like, what's normal in this area and what's not normal in that area. And I've been really surprised to find that on the East Coast, where I think people are maybe a little more progressive and everything, like, I feel like breastfeeding advocacy was so much more important. Whereas I'm in Texas now, and we have pretty low breastfeeding rates in the town I'm in, but the people who do breastfeed are not quiet about it. Like, it's not taboo. Like, I don't feel like it's a taboo issue. I feel like it's a support and education issue versus being taboo, because it's almost like there's a lot of big families and they're like, oh yeah, like we breastfed this many babies and blah, blah, blah. And it's like a thing people talk about, like it's normal. And I'm like, it's very different to see how it's like almost not how I would have expected it. And the way that it plays out, it's really neat to see how the landscape is just changing, I think, and how it changes across the country.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have that experience. I just having nursed my first one and my second one where, my first one, I was always made sure to have like a cover. And my second one, I'm like, if it bothers you, don't look. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I got there very quickly with my first because we were trying to feed with a nipple shield, and I just could not handle like the nipple shield to cover like all of it. And I was like, the cover's gone. Forget about it. Like, that was the first thing to go. But it's I think we're making progress. I think we're making progress on that front, but it's still, we have such a long way to go. And if you're listening and you are pregnant or you are a new mom and you feel unsure, I encourage you to really think about the reasons why breastfeeding is important to you. And if you really tune into why it's important to you, all of the drama or controversial whatever doesn't matter anymore. And then you can just focus on achieving your goals.
I love that. So that was 5 common mistakes. If we can go over the 5 ones. So
yeah, we'll go over them again real quick. I said a lot. I talked a lot. The first mistake is believing that breastfeeding pain is a rite of passage. It's not a rite of passage. If you have pain, get help. Even if you think it's normal pain, it's okay. Get help. What's it going to hurt to get help? The second mistake is assuming that you have low milk supply just because your baby is fussy or not latching well. The third mistake is depending on doctors and nurses to solve your breastfeeding struggles. The fourth mistake, I actually don't think I touched on this one. I think I skipped this one actually, is using control-based feeding techniques. And this is a really common thing that we see in the hospital, is where you have your baby, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's hurry up and get that first latch. And we're going to sit up straight and you're going to hold your baby in this upright, stiff position and then grab their head, wait for them to open and smush them on real quick. And that's how they tell you to do it.
Yes.
And it doesn't work. And then moms are like, the baby's screaming and flailing. And it's because we're not working with our babies. It's really important to learn how to work with our baby's design. And when we do that, everything else feels a lot more natural. It might not come super naturally, but it can feel like it when we're working with their design. And so learning, again, going back to learning during pregnancy, is really important so that we understand how our babies are designed, so that we can work with their reflexes and their bodies to be a team instead of work against each other.
Awesome. And then the last one.
And then the last one was ignoring your instincts and intuition.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. I love that you just went over these top ones, and a lot of them really sound like they're the hospital experiences. But finally,
it's not just the hospital experiences. I've had, 2 home births. I work a lot with home birth families, and it's nothing against midwives either. It's nothing against any institution, but this is very pervasive in the home birth community as well, because it's this idea that everything's just going to be natural and it's just going to work out. And if it doesn't, just wait and watch. And I think it's really important for moms to know you don't have to wait and watch. You can take action, and you can be confident in taking that action.
Thank you. So before we go, do you have any final thoughts, suggestions, recommendations, anything you want to share? And I will have all of your information linked in the show notes. So for anyone that wants to reach out or connect with you, they can do so through there.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that I just want to encourage you is that breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So we can have great bonding, wonderful breastfeeding experiences even when they're hard. So if you're having a hard start right now and it is hard, there are solutions, there are options, and it doesn't have to feel like you're failing just because it's hard. So if you are going through that, I definitely encourage you to go listen to my podcast, the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast, because I talk about a ton of the common early challenges there. If you are pregnant and you haven't had your baby yet, taking a prenatal breastfeeding class really can help you set a really strong foundation. And again, just working with a lactation consultant. And if there's not one in your area, if you're in a remote area, virtual lactation consultants are available and they work really well. I've worked with moms in remote areas of Alaska where there's nothing, and it's like you're able to do so much virtually that if you feel like you're in an area where you don't have options and you don't have resources, I promise you do. You just need to find them.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really nice chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a review if you like us.